You ever had a neighbor who just doesn't know when to stop? The kind who acts like the whole world belongs to them? Well, let me tell you about mine, Karen. Karen wasn't just your regular annoying neighbor. She was bold, the type who'd take what wasn't hers without a second thought. And in my case, that was electricity. Yeah, you heard that right. She was stealing power from my house to charge her ATV, and not just once or twice, she made a habit of it. Now, I live in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where people smile at each other and mind their own business. Most of the folks here are decent. They keep their yards clean, say hello when they pass by, and don't mess with each other's property. But Karen? She was the exception. She didn't care about boundaries. If she wanted something, she'd take it. And apparently, that included free electricity. At first, I didn't even notice. My power bill seemed a little high, but I figured maybe I had been leaving too many lights on. Then, one day, I spotted something strange, an extension cord running from my outdoor outlet, snaking across my yard, and disappearing into Karen's garage. It took me a second to process what I was looking at. Was this real? Was she actually plugging into my house to charge her stuff? I walked over, unplugged the cord, and tossed it back into her yard. Maybe it was some kind of mistake. Maybe she'd apologize and we'd move on. But nope. The next day, the cord was back. Same spot, same setup. She wasn't just borrowing power, she knew exactly what she was doing. At this point, I was annoyed but still trying to be reasonable. I knocked on her door and asked her about it. She gave me this innocent look and shrugged. "Oh, I didn't think you'd mind. It's just a little bit of power. Like it was no big deal. Like I was the one making a fuss over nothing." That's when I realized this wasn't an accident. She had no plans to stop. And the worst part? She didn't feel bad about it at all. Electricity isn't free. I work hard to pay my bills. And here she was, helping herself to my power, like it was some kind of unlimited buffet. If I let this slide, what was next? Was she going to start watering her lawn with my hose? Running an extension cord inside my house? I wasn't about to let that happen. Something had to be done. But first, I needed to see just how far she was willing to go. At first, I tried to brush it off. Maybe Karen had just made a bad choice, and once she realized I wasn't okay with it, she'd stop. But then, my power bill came in. It was way higher than usual. At first, I thought maybe I had been leaving things on, or maybe my AC was running more than I thought. But no, this was different. It didn't make sense. That's when I started paying closer attention. And sure enough, there it was again, that same extension cord running right from my outdoor outlet, across my yard, and into Karen's garage. And it wasn't just during the day I started checking at random times, and I realized she was plugging in at night, too. Probably thinking I wouldn't notice, I figured it was time for a friendly talk. So, the next time I saw her outside, I walked over and brought it up as casually as I could. "Hey, Karen, I noticed you've been using my outlet. I'd really appreciate it if you could stop." She gave me this fake, surprised look, like she had no idea what I was talking about. "Oh, I thought you wouldn't mind," she said, acting like she had just borrowed a cup of sugar or something I should have known. Right then, this wasn't a misunderstanding. She knew exactly what she was doing. The next day, I unplugged the cord myself and tossed it back toward her property. Problem solved, right? Wrong. The very next morning, the cord was back in the same spot, plugged in like nothing had happened. Fine. She wanted to play games? I could do that too. I started leaving little notes on the outlet. Stuff like, "Not a free charging station and pay your own power bill, nothing too aggressive, just enough to get the point across." But Karen? She didn't care. She ignored the notes completely. It was like she had convinced herself that if she just acted like this wasn't a big deal, I'd eventually give up and let her do whatever she wanted. And then, her excuses started getting even worse. One time, I caught her outside right as she was about to plug in again. I called her out on it, and she rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. It's just a little electricity. She said, don't be selfish. Selfish? Was she serious? She was stealing from me and somehow I was the bad guy? But the worst part was she didn't stop. In fact, she got even bolder. At first, it was just her ATV charger. Annoying, but manageable. But then I started seeing more stuff plugged in. Power tools lights. A freaking mini fridge. She wasn't just stealing a little power here and there, she was running full-on appliances off my electricity. And she was doing it in a way that made it clear she had no intention of stopping. She started plugging in at night, thinking I wouldn't check. She'd wait until she thought I was asleep, and then run her cords over like some kind of electricity thief in the night. At this point, I was done playing nice. She wasn't just crossing the line, she had trampled all over it and kept going. I needed a new plan, because clearly, asking nicely wasn't going to cut it. One night, I was sitting at home, minding my own business, when everything suddenly shut off. The lights, the TV, even the fridge, total blackout. At first, I thought maybe there was a power outage in the area. But when I looked outside, every other house on the street was still lit up. Except for one. Karen's house was dark, too. That's when it hit me. She must have overloaded the circuit. I grabbed a flashlight and went outside to check my breaker box. Sure enough, the main breaker had tripped. And right there, running from my outlet as usual, was Karen's stupid extension cord. That was it. That was my breaking point. This wasn't just about a high electricity bill anymore. This wasn't just about her being entitled and refusing to stop. She had actually cut off power to my house. What if I had been working on something important? What if my fridge had been full of groceries that were now at risk of spoiling? What if I had kids or pets who needed that power? She didn't care. She never cared. I reset the breaker, unplugged her cord for the last time, and called an electrician the next morning. I wanted to make sure there wasn't any serious damage, and, more importantly, that she hadn't somehow tapped into my power directly. When the electrician came, he took one look at the situation and shook his head. Yeah, she's definitely pulling more power than your outlet is meant for. It's a wonder this didn't cause a bigger problem. He confirmed what I already knew. Karen had been stealing way more than just a little electricity. If this kept up, she could actually damage my wiring or even start a fire. I was done. No more talking. No more warnings. It was time to hit back, but not in a way that would get me in trouble. No, I wanted something that would teach her a lesson the right way. Something that would make sure she never tried this again. I had an idea. A very good idea. Karen thought she could take whatever she wanted without consequences. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. I spent the next few days doing my research. I wasn't about to do anything illegal, but I needed a way to make sure Karen never tried this again. Just cutting off her access clearly wasn't enough. She kept coming back like a cockroach. If I wanted her to stop, I needed consequences. After digging through forums and electrician websites, I finally found the perfect solution. A trap circuit. It wouldn't hurt anyone, but it would fry anything plugged into it. Basically, it sent a brief but powerful surge through any device connected to it enough to destroy chargers, power supplies, and small electronics. And the best part? It was completely legal. Now I just had to set it up. I went out and bought an extra outdoor outlet, one that looked real, but wasn't actually connected to my power. Instead, I wired it to the trap circuit and installed it right near the spot where Karen always plugged in her cord. From the outside, it looked just like my other outlets. But the moment someone tried to use it, it would fry whatever they plugged in. It didn't take long for Karen to take the bait. That night, I kept an eye on the window, waiting. Sure enough, just after dark, I saw movement near the fake outlet. Karen, acting like she was sneaking into some top-secret mission, crept up to my house, dragging her trusty extension cord. She plugged it in. And then, boom. Okay, maybe not an actual explosion, but a loud pop, A bright spark and the smell of burnt plastic filled the air. Her ATV charger was fried. I watched from the window as Karen jumped back like she had just touched a live wire. She stared at the outlet, then at her charger, completely shocked. Then, in classic Karen fashion, instead of realizing she had just gotten what she deserved, she got mad. The yelling started immediately. She stormed up to my door and pounded on it like a debt collector. When I answered, she was already mid-rant. "You broke my charger!" she screeched, holding up the ruined mess of wires like it was evidence in a crime scene. I just crossed my arms. "I didn't break anything. You plugged into my house without permission." Again. She wasn't having it. "This is your fault. You did something." I shrugged. "You mean I protected my property from someone stealing electricity?" "Yeah, I did." Her face turned red. "I'm calling the cops," she snapped. I smiled. "Go ahead. I'll tell them everything." She wasn't expecting that. I could see her brain trying to process it. She wanted to play the victim. But deep down, she knew she was in the wrong. She turned and stomped away, muttering under her breath. And just like that, I knew. She was done. She wasn't about to call the cops on herself, and she definitely wasn't going to try stealing my electricity again. Checkmate, Karen. The next morning, I decided to take things one step further. I called the police myself. I wasn't about to wait and see if Karen would actually follow through on her threat. Besides, I had all the proof I needed. Photos of her extension cord plugged into my house, my increased power bills, and even a statement from the electrician confirming she had been pulling too much electricity. When the cops showed up, I calmly explained the situation. I showed them everything, how she had repeatedly ignored my warnings, how she had caused my power to go out, and how she had been stealing electricity for weeks. And right on cue, Karen came storming out of her house. She saw the police and immediately put on her best fake victim act. "He sabotaged my property," she whined, pointing at me like I was some kind of criminal. "He set a trap to break my charger." The officers gave her a look. "Ma'am, were you using his electricity without permission?" She hesitated. "Well, it's just a little bit of power. It's not like he needed it all." The moment those words left her mouth, it was over. One of the officers sighed and shook his head. "That's theft, ma'am. And judging by the evidence, it's been going on for a while." Karen's face turned pale. She tried backtracking, stammering out excuses, but it was too late. The officers told her she was lucky I wasn't pressing full charges, but she still had to pay for the damages she caused, including my electrician's service fee. But the real punishment? Her reputation was ruined. Word spread fast in our neighborhood. Other neighbors, who had probably just tolerated Karen's nonsense before, started keeping an eye on her. She could no longer pull the same tricks without someone calling her out. She had burned every last bridge. As for me, I went back to my peaceful, Karen-free life. My electricity bill went back to normal. No more sneaky extension cords. No more passive-aggressive arguments. Just pure, uninterrupted satisfaction. And the best part? Karen was stuck with a fried, completely useless ATV charger. Every time she looked at it, she'd remember exactly what happened when she tried to mess with me. Lesson learned, Karen. Lesson learned. Looking back, I realized that trying to reason with Karen was a complete waste of time. Some people don't care about doing the right thing. They don't care about fairness, respect, or common sense. The only thing they understand is consequences. At first, I thought maybe she just didn't realize how serious it was. But after all the times I asked her to stop, all the times I unplugged her cord, and all the excuses she made, it was clear she knew exactly what she was doing. She just didn't think anything would happen to her. But justice? Justice is a beautiful thing, and it feels even better when it's clever. I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to scream or make a scene. I didn't even have to break the law. I just let Karen's greed take care of itself. She wanted to keep stealing? Fine, but she wasn't ready for what happened when she did. And the best part? She'll never try it again. Oh, and in case you're wondering, last I checked, Karen's ATV hasn't moved in weeks. I guess she finally learned that stealing power comes with a cost.